My name's KJ Becker.
Awesome. So we pretty much just get straight into the questions.
hmm
Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, and you can just look at me and it's the same.
Yeah, sure. My childhood is where my whole journey started because it was not great. I'm a child of divorce at 3 months old, and I don't know the reasoning. Probably a touch of infidelity and some mental illness combined together. But I stayed with my mom, and we moved to Iowa. And um, a lot of marriages happened. Both parents got remarried, lots of kids. I have five stepsisters and half sisters and two brothers. And I'm the only one between my parents. So that kind of started my black sheep of the family moniker, I guess. But after my mom remarried, she had two more kids, and that's the family that I grew up with. So I was the oldest in the family. And my mom's mental illness just declined over the years, especially after my little brother was born. And it was a lot of medical neglect, a lot of physical, emotional, and verbal abuse from her. Um, so I got out as quick as I could, and my solution to getting out of that town, out of that house, was I joined the Air Force when I was 17. I actually signed up my junior year, first semester, because I knew that that's what I was going to do. It was the easiest way out. They had the Illinois Veterans Grant, so I knew I was going to be able to get to college in addition to the GI Bill. And I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out of my small town. I just knew I was too big for it. So um, I've gotten, past my childhood. I am disconnected from my entire family except for two younger siblings, and that's definitely for the best. Um, I am coming to the conclusion in the past few years that I'm going to live this life to make myself happy, and having willful blindness of abuse in my life, and people telling me that I was lying about stuff, and my mother never owning up to it, even when I was sick in the hospital and asked her about it. So it's just disappointing overall. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but ketamine really helped me disconnect from the negative people and situations that I had going on in my life.
What were your dreams as a child?
I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist and a marine biologist all at the same time. Um, I had to go visit my dad in Florida, so I was obsessed with SeaWorld. Now I'm like, God, that's horrible. But yeah, I got into I adopted a manatee, so I was deep into that, and I had contacted a local newspaper and asked for advice from the cartoonist there. So those were my dreams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about your relationship with your dad and how that relationship felt to you?
Yeah, so my first childhood memory is actually my mom sitting me down when I was 4 years old in her bedroom telling me that I had a father, but he was dead. And so I could call my stepfather dad. And so she was trying to set me up for something. I didn't know at the time what was about to happen, but I ended up meeting him and an entire family of five sisters and a brother when I was 7 years old. I'm sure there was some court case stuff and custody stuff going on that I don't know about, but it happened. So when I would go there, I would be basically punished by my mother. So much she had so much hate for my father that she took it out on me, as the story goes. So at my dad's house, it was great. It was in Florida. They had a pool. They, now that I look back, were making up for lost time with me, like really spoiling me and buying me things. So that even turned the knife even more for my mom when I would come home with all these things. And So my dad, he is an interesting guy. He's an insurance agent, but before that, he has been in a rodeo band. He had his own band named Nickelodeon, and they would play in bars, and I was tagging along right with them. I was part of it when I was, there as a kid. They were taking me to the bars while they played and all of that, back when you could get away with that kind of thing. But what kind of turned the corner with that whole side of my family is that they started going to a Christian Science church, and I was raised Catholic. So this was a whole different ball of wax for me going to a Christian Science church. They tried to give me a book, the Dianetics book. I had no idea what was happening. And then we went to church one time, and they had me sit in the rows, and they both left. My dad and my stepmom both left, and they're like, "We'll be right back." And they came out as part of the Christian Science, service, as Christian guitar playing clowns, full clown garb. They went to school to go do this. And I was like 12. I was like, what in the hell is going on? So that just kind of started to really, it was weird every time I went and visited them from then on. Like my stepmom became a psychic and a massage therapist. It just got nuts. So whatever, I placate them, and as the years go by, it's an off and on relationship. He would call my mom's house to talk to me, and my mom would yell, "Florida's on the phone," because she couldn't even stand to say his name or call him, "Your dad's on the phone," or anything. So then skip forward to like 2006, 2007, and I'm in college in Chicago. And mind you, I went to the military that paid for my entire college. Neither one of my parents chipped in anything. And I call my dad to tell them the details of my graduation, because I'm assuming they're gonna come, right? So I give them the details, and I never hear from them again. And they didn't come to my graduation, and I have no idea what happened. And then in late 2007, after I had graduated, I didn't contact them. I was like, whatever, like, I'm over it. It's crazy people. And end of 2007 rolls around, and I get an email that was supposedly from my dad, but I could tell that it was written by my stepmom. And basically, they disconnected from me. They said, if we didn't come to your graduation, you never contacted us ever again. If this is the way that you want to live, we're okay with that. And we release you in love and light. And I'm just like, okay. And I haven't talked to them since 2007. I used to talk to one of my younger siblings that was on that side of the family, but I think they had a bunch of drama happen that I don't know about. So I don't think that family is even cohesive anymore.
So, I mean, you talked a little bit about your mom. So the next question is maybe a little bit more about your relationship with her, or lack thereof, and how that felt for you.
So my mom wasn't a type of mom that said, "I love you," or "I'm proud of you," or "good job," or anything like that. She was unmedicated. I'm making the call of bipolar just by her mannerisms. And then narcissistic tendencies and victim identity. So it was a lot of blaming everybody else for things. Like, she would lose something that I would have nothing to do with, and she would blame me, and gave her an excuse to abuse. She taught me how to, she raised me as a liar, because that's what she was modeling. And it burned me, later in life. I got burned with lying. And what happened with her, it was, chaotic, and I've been, taken to relatives' houses. She often threatened my life to retaliate against my dad. Um, I can't tell you how many times I was told or overheard that she was going to run me into a telephone pole together. Her and I, we would always run away to her mom's house, just her and I. She always favored me over my other siblings. I'm not sure why. It was just really weird because she always came down on me for being my father's child. So she was a terrorist until I took my power back. She tried to hit me, and I caught her hand. And I said, hit me again, bitch, and see what happens.
How old were you?
16. 16.
And she had hit you repeatedly before?
She would sneak up on me, or she would bum rush my bedroom. I've been squished and slammed in between my bedroom door and my wall hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. So she found out that I wasn't a virgin anymore, and that was very sensitive to her because supposedly, and I don't know if any of this is true, I found a diary, supposedly, where she had written about how she had been molested by 2 of her stepfathers. And I mean, it lines up with the victim identity and the mannerisms now that I know. But she found out I wasn't a virgin, and the only door that we had in the house that locked was the bathroom. So to protect myself, I locked myself in the bathroom, and she was just on a tirade, like shoving Harlequin books under the door and being like, here, you want to know about sex? Read these. And shoving like baby pictures of me under the door saying, this is the Kelly Jo I used to know. And then she went outside and she tried to break the window with these giant like limestones that we had out in the yard. And then I hear her walking up and down our neighborhood street, which is, very small, tight knit. I lived in a town of 1,100 people. Everybody knows everybody. And she just walked up and down the neighborhood street yelling, Kelly Jo Becker is a fucking slut. So, everybody says you gotta love your mom because she's your mom. I'm probably one of the very few. I feel no emotional mother-daughter connection to her whatsoever. She's just betrayed me so many times. So I left for the Air Force. And
you were going through just growing up with, a mom who's obviously got her own serious issues, and you not knowing that, how did it feel for you? Did you take it all? I mean, I know I took it personally. How did you take it, and how did it feel, and how did you cope?
Definitely took it on myself because I was also her protector. It was some of that Stockholm syndrome thing. You love your abuser, And so it was a lot of me actually protecting her. Like I would overhear her and my stepdad, and her not wanting to have sex, and I would go in and protect her. Or I would stand up for her in certain situations where I came in late and didn't know what was really going on, and it just added to the chaos.
How did it feel emotionally for you?
I felt like a parent to an adult. I was getting up and making my brother and sister breakfast and doling out their meds. They both had ADHD as a kid. So mom was, on the weekends, she was in bed Saturday and Sunday all day, So somebody had to take care of stuff. And she would leave early in the morning before we left for school. So I was getting us all ready for school. So I took on a very parental role until I left. Looking back now, I had tons of anxiety. I would always describe it as like, there's something I have to do, but I don't know what it is. And my only release that I could do in a positive way is I would tear apart my bedroom and reorganize it and put it all back together perfect. And so that was a lot of how I worked that out. I saw counselors at school, but that only started in the 4th grade. the school found out that my mom had registered me fraudulently into school under my stepdad's name instead of my real father's name. So that's what started all of the school counselor sessions like once a week. But I mean, I also reported and showed my school counselor the remnants of a beating that I got, and it was never reported. So how much help were they really? It's just a pattern of more willful blindness that I experienced throughout my childhood. My step family, my step grandparents, my aunts and uncles, they all considered me like full blood grandchild. Like I've known them forever, and none of them helped me either. So it was just like my goal became to get out of there, to save myself.
What did you learn from them, good or bad?
What did I learn from?
Just that whole parental experience with
Yeah,
your parents.
I learned how not to be a parent. I mean, which is, I'm sure, a common thing you hear. It definitely geared my life in a certain direction. I wanted to study psychology so I could figure everybody out and be like, what in the hell has been going on for the past 17 years, you know? So it got me into the field of working with folks with disabilities and mental illness. That all really interested me because I just didn't understand why someone was acting that way with my mom at home.
Do you feel that you understand a bit more now?
Definitely. But I also understand that it's not my circus, not my monkeys. I can't burden myself with that. My sister and I talk very candidly about how we grew up because she targeted the two of us instead of my little brother, and we would always talk about how we just have these bricks on our shoulders, and like not to sound like stone cold or anything, but like it will be a relief. And we've both said this to each other when mom dies. We don't have to worry about her hurting our nieces and nephews. We don't have to worry about her abusing our stepdad anymore. But he's just as, responsible in this situation as she is because he didn't do anything to protect us.
Can you tell us about your first love, and it's whatever you associate with your first love, and how that felt?
My first love was actually a person. I met him in 2010, and I was drop dead in love with him. It was the first time I'd ever been in love, I know now, and it was the last time I've ever been in love. But it all goes to shit, you know? He was dishonest and about who he was and what he was doing, and I convinced him to go to therapy once, and he refused to go again. It was something that I couldn't get over without his input because it was just my mind, circling everything with no input from him. So as soon as that happened, I made the internal decision to, again, get the hell out of there. And it took me 2 years to get out.
How did that first love initially feel? Since
it was amazing.
Since this is like a double-edged sword,
right?
Right. How did it feel at the beginning and then the getting out?
It was exciting. He was in a very well-known band, a band that I was a fan of, that I had gone and seen even before I had met him, and he and I randomly met at a live funk show that we were at. A mutual friend was like, I need to hook you up with somebody. And we met, we danced all night, and basically attached at the hip from that point on for the next 5 years, I think. But 2 years in, he, cheated. So I tried because it could have been a really good life. I went on tour with the band, I helped drive and got to travel. It helped me fall in love with the Pacific Northwest. He was a really great, interesting person, super talented musician. And, people make mistakes, and some people aren't ready to be the person who they actually are at certain times in their life. And the thing that gets me is if he would have just been honest with me, we could have worked out the situation, because I think he was thinking I was a lot more closed-minded than I actually am as far as intimate relationships go, you know? So hopefully he's honest with his new wife.
What about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt?
Well, I want to go back to the first in love thing
Yeah.
because this one,
Mm-hmm.
she has actually taught me what love actually is.
Mm-hmm.
She's got my back in every situation. She's all over me. She's in love with me. I can tell the way she looks at me.
Mm-hmm.
And so being responsible for her, but she also me as, you know, her service job, um, that's that's love right there. Like depending on each other in such a visceral way sometimes, that is eons beyond the love that I felt for that guy.
How does it feel to have that love?
Fulfilling. I feel it in my chest. Like I feel that in my chest. I feel that openness. I feel that feeling of receiving from her. I have issues with people touching me, and she has taught me how to, you know, be gentle and be able to love on somebody without feeling cringy, I guess is the best description, just because of other things that I've been through.
So one of the questions that follows up is, who first taught you love and how? I think is it.
I mean, it would be that guy.
Yeah.
Those first 2 years that he showed me what an actual like healthy relationship was, like doing things together. Like my whole thing was like when I would be dating somebody, I would always get annoyed with something very early on, and I didn't with him. And we for real had zero arguments for 2 years straight, which is so different from where I'm coming from of constant chaos and arguing and yelling and screaming, to like have a solid relationship that, I mean, regardless of what he did, he had my back, you know, in those 5 years. And, you know, I thank him for that, because he's also the last person I've been in love with. And I don't plan on going down that road again. So, yeah, he was the love of my life for 2 years.
So what's love to you now? And how different is what love is to you now versus what it was to you back then as a kid or
Yeah.
before, you know?
Yeah. So I had no idea what love was as a kid. It wasn't displayed. Nobody in my family was affectionate with each other. My stepdad's family, very staunch Catholics, so it's not like they're lovey-dovey all over each other. And then, you know, the way that I learned about sex was hearing my parents argue about not wanting to do it, and my mom crying, and my mom saying it hurts, and stuff like that. She's right in the next room, you know. So it was very distorted. I credit my first grade teacher, Mrs. Bonfig. She made me feel love, and all she did was come to one of my ballet recitals and brought me a flower. But that was the first time that any adult, even my family, ever made an effort to do something, especially for me, and then also give me a gift. Like that blew my mind as a first grader. So yeah, love is very complicated. I didn't even love myself until a few years ago, you know, so I had no idea what I was even striving for to feel.
What's the idea that you may have of it now?
I'm pretty, I'm good. I'm having fun with Betsy and myself. And I tried to do the lifestyle that I'm living with someone else, and it was a shit show. So I have more hope for my future without that person doing this lifestyle with me. So the freedom that I'm going to be able to experience is something that I'm so excited about.
What's a good day like for you?
A good day is when I have very minimal pain. Um, you know, I don't work anymore because of VA disability stuff. So a good day is when I can follow the routine that I have set up for my day, which is, wake up, drink water, meditate, do my affirmations, do some sort of exercise because I do have physical limitations. And usually that includes taking her for a walk or a hike. So, and we go for like 2 hours, almost every day when I can walk and things. So, a part of that is the last part of that is being able to make art all day. So that's my job. That's what I have a degree in. So I make it. I don't make any money off of it, but I'm not worried about it. I do it because it's fun and it helps, with my anxiety. And it's just part of someone I've always been, even as a kid, newspaper cartoonist. I'm still a cartoonist today.
What about a bad day? And what are the things you do to work through that day?
So a bad day is when I can't get out of bed. I physically can't get out of bed without pain. I have a lot of chronic health issues that probably stem from my time in the desert. I fit almost all the criteria for Gulf War syndrome, and the chronic pain that I have started like a month after I got back from the desert, so that's 1997. So I've been dealing with pain since then. But I also dealt with pain as a kid. It was explained to me that there were growing pains. And I was in gymnastics and tap dance and ballet, but I was never taken to a doctor for pain. I was taken to a chiropractor. Like, who puts a kid in chiropractic? And then the solution was to, my mom would slather my legs in Bengay and wrap them with an ace bandage and sit me in front of the TV. And I was just having like really bad deep bone pain. And now I know that I probably have CPTSD, complex PTSD, because of the childhood trauma stuff that can cause all of this physical pain. My mind-body connection is very sensitive. If I am depressed, I hurt. If I get, worked up or triggered or like the hypervigilance, I hurt. So a bad day is when I can't get out of bed. I literally cannot walk because I have piriformis syndrome. And the pain is almost exactly like sciatica. And it travels from side to side, and nothing seems to explain why it shows up and why it doesn't. The final word from the VA is that I have functional movement disorder and fibromyalgia and, chronic depression, anxiety.
How do you, when you're in that bad day, do you just more so just try and just let it pass?
Oh, no. I have a gamut of things that I have to use. So first I try and make sure I do as much as my routine as I can. That just makes me feel like I've closed that circle, that I've gotten all this stuff done, and I can at least feel good about that. So I have a bunch of self-care tools that I have and use, and some work and some don't, and I don't know which ones are which because they both don't work and sometimes both do work. Yeah. So I have a TENS unit, I have an Alpha Stim, I have foam rollers, I have acupressure pads, I go to massage therapy, I take Tylenol, but I don't like to take that very much because I have issues with Tylenol and naproxen and all of those. Heat, ice. I try to stretch. I'm big on the pigeon pose because that's right where that stretch needs to be. But sometimes I can't do any of it. And I lay there and I just smoke weed all day and watch movies and, self-loathe.
So when you have that day, right, where you do just choose to, or at least choose not to maybe try and do those things that you know that maybe you should do.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself from not having that day turn into a week and that week turn into 2 weeks?
Mentally, I can get out of it. Physically is what is the barrier. Mentally, I'm in a good spot, probably the best spot I've been in 20 years, mentally. So I've been working on remembering to be gentle with myself and to remember that I'm not 20 anymore. And to remember that it's not all in my head like everybody's been telling me. I actually do have things going on. And to not beat myself up about it. That has taken a long time to do. And it, in the past, has been a catch-22 where I'm hurting, that's making me depressed. It's making me depressed and hopeless that I can't get out of bed. And then that turns itself into pain too. And manifests in more pain. So there have been times when I've been in bed for 2 weeks to a month straight without being able to move, shower, brush my teeth, barely eat. But a lot less in the past few years, thank God.
How are you kind to yourself?
Do you want to know the first thing that came to mind? I do a lot of psychedelics.
Okay, well, that's one way.
Yeah, at least once a month. I've been able to successfully get off of all of the psych meds that the VA has been shoving down my throat for the past 10 years that never helped, that just gave me more side effects and made me overweight and scattered. In 2018, so when I can't walk for 3 days or more, I take myself to the emergency room or have somebody take me. And there was a time when it was time to go to the emergency room. And so I had my boyfriend at the time take me to the Denver VA emergency room because I could have gone to any community hospital and gotten it paid for by the VA, but I've done that in the past and it's just more stressful because you still get bills sent to you in the mail even though you know you don't have to pay them, and it's still just very stressful to deal with that whole thing. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go straight to the VA. I was living in Manitou Springs at the time, so it was a long drive, and I wasn't able to walk. I had to get wheeled in a wheelchair, and they put me in a room and did the worksheet or whatever, the clearance stuff. And about 20 minutes later, this doctor comes in and we're chit-chatting. He's trying to figure out what's going on with me. And I'm telling him, the past stuff. And he goes, so, well, do you smoke pot? And I was like, here we go. I'm gonna have to defend my medical marijuana card again at the VA. Again. So I copped a little attitude. I said, yeah, I got a prescription for it too, because I'm getting ready to man up and fight somebody about it. And he goes, well, have you ever heard of ketamine? I was like, Special K? You mean horse tranquilizer? Yes, I've heard of it. I've done it. I've been in a K-hole, yes. And he's like, well, this is nothing like that. This is something different. He's like, I don't know if you realize how lucky you are to be here on this day at this time. He goes, because I'm the head of the emergency room. He's like the department head. Mm-hmm. He goes, and I'm only here about 3 days a month. And I just got out of a meeting with the board of the VA to get ketamine infusion therapy reinstated for veterans for pain. Not for PTSD, just for pain. I was like, I'll try anything. Because I've been dealing with this since 1997, 30 years, right? 20 years. And he's like, all right, well, we have to do a mental status exam. And I was like, why, if you're only giving it to me for pain? He was like, I know. I was like, fine, I'll do it. It's not like I haven't done a million of these things. So my first ketamine infusion was at the VA, which I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear. And it was 45 minutes of pure bliss. I did a very, very low dose. I think it was only like 40 milligrams. And I was cognizant and everything. And they were like, do you have any music you'd like to listen to? I don't know what got into me, but I put on Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style and I rapped the entire thing during the entire infusion. I had my hood over my eyes, so I didn't know that nurses were coming in and out and checking. Like they put like a blood pressure cuff on you and monitor you and stuff. No idea. I was just rapping Snoop Dogg. So all in all, it took about 4 hours at the VA where I was wheeled in a wheelchair. I was able to walk out pain-free after one 45-minute ketamine infusion. So I go home, I was like, I gotta find out who this doctor is, right? So I Googled him. Bing! I was like, what's this? What is this? And it's a place called Clarisana, and it is owned by Dr. Carl Bonnet, the head of the VA emergency room department. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna give them a call. I had so much success, with 45-minute low dose. So I was the first patient at the Denver clinic, and I got a rare face-to-face time at the ketamine clinic with Dr. Carl Bonnet, and it's revolutionary. I did the prescribed 6 sessions that they say to do to like jumpstart it. And so I did, I think, 3 infusions a week for 2 weeks. And after that, I did it once a month. And then I left the state for about 6 months. And so I wasn't able to get it. I tried to get it in Chicago, and it was so outrageously priced that there was no way. Clarisana gave me a hardship grant because I'm a homeless veteran. So I only had to pay $50 per infusion for those 6 infusions, which was great, I came back from Chicago, and this is a whole nother story, but I was living at a wolf sanctuary. So I didn't have any then, but after I left the wolf sanctuary, I came to live back here in town, called up Clarisana, and tried to get the hardship grant again, and they weren't handing them out like they had been in the past. And when I was staying at the Wolf Sanctuary, one of the things that they made us veterans do was sign up for all of the benefits that we possibly could. So I signed up for Medicaid back then. Clarisana started accepting Medicaid. So I don't pay anything now, which is amazing because usually they can be between $250 to $850, depending on, I don't know what it's dependent on, because ketamine is super cheap. So it's got to be like the experience that they're providing.
Yeah. What would you say is a person or an event that's shaped you, good or bad?
An event would be, I lost my best friend to a drunk driving accident when I was 17, and that was my send-off to the Air Force. She died in June, and I left in September. So that shaped me a lot because I was trying to get out of town, but I also wanted to be back home being supportive for her family and friends, and it was better that I left, looking back. A person that has highly influenced me, her name is Denise Fisher. And I met her in 2003 in Chicago. And she started a nonprofit called The Arts of Life. And it is an alternative day program for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities to either continue their art making career if they were already started, or we teach somebody who is interested in art making how to be an artist from the ground up. And they paid them. So I met her and I volunteered and did an internship there for years. After I graduated, I worked there and I ended up, being the manager of the place. And it's just something that's so authentic and different than anything I've ever seen in the disability industry that it's just influenced my whole idea of the way people with disabilities are treated, talked to, their restrictive benefits and restrictive rights that they have. And I've always been loud and proud about all of that. I think it was Obama went on the Jay Leno show one year, and he made some offhand comment about how he had gone bowling, and it was as if he was in the Special Olympics. I went to work the next day and had to sit with like 5 crying artists with disabilities because they were such huge Obama fans, watched him on the show that night, and then heard him make that comment and took it, the way they should have. It was offensive. And so just things like that happening over and over again, or seeing someone who's completely nonverbal with autism be able to grow into a super strong and important community member of the art studio. The thing that sets this place apart, Arts of Life, is that it's not run by me, staff, or a manager, or a volunteer. It's run by the community. So we would have what we called studio meetings every Friday, and that's basically where we would have our business meetings. We would talk about, hiring and firing people, accepting new artists into the community. They have to go through a trial period and get voted in. Business decisions like where are we going to hang our art next? Who do we need to contact? That's all made by the folks with disabilities, not us. They're telling us what they want, and we, put it into action. So I worked there for a really long time, which is also rare in the industry. People usually get burnt out really easily. But I was there from 2003 until 2014. And that was also one of my biggest regrets. Leaving there. And the way that I left. I was still very much so in a bad mental spot, and very victim identity was super high. And I left without talking to Denise, my mentor, first about it. I went and found another job that was in Oregon. And then after I got that all set, I presented it to her and said, this is my last 2 weeks, And it was a shock. I was unknowingly being groomed to take a higher position for the organization. And I kind of blew it. And I miss all of my friends there.
What's inspired you?
Arts of Life. There's one specific artist there that was my muse. His name was Bobby. And he made some of the most amazing abstract art I've ever seen anybody ever do. And I helped facilitate a lot of it with him. And that was just basically me ripping off pieces of blue tape and handing it to him. And he didn't have any family. He didn't have anybody that would take him on outings. So I became that person. I took him to the grocery store to get his Pepsi and his Snickers and his magazines. We went out for drives. I took him to Baker's Square, to get pie and stuff. And I was with him in his last minutes in hospice. Um, I had left him in hospice. You know, he was old. And I had left him that night, and I went home and I took the meds that I was still on. And I can't drive after I take those. And they called me like 10 minutes after I took my meds to tell me he had passed away. But he taught me a lot about not taking bullshit. He knew what he wanted. He had things a certain way, and he didn't let anybody boss him around. And I've made multiple pieces of abstract art about Bobby.
What's been a humbling experience for you? And can you describe those feelings during that experience?
Yeah. My most humbling experience was probably in 2018 when I was fired from my job. I've never been fired from a job, ever. And it wasn't even really my fault. In 2017, I developed out of the blue a rectal abscess. And 2 weeks before that had surfaced, I had a repressed memory of a sexual assault that I had experienced when I was in the desert that had to do with anal rape. And then 2 weeks later, I come up with this rectal abscess. I had to have surgery. I've never been the same. I have chronic colorectal issues, chronic gastroenterology issues. And I feel like that's just another example of how tight my mind-body connection is that fast it manifested. Because that repressed memory, that threw me for a loop. I have been dealing with a sexual assault that I knew about, let alone one that I didn't remember until I went through hypnotism. And my job, I was a case manager for folks with disabilities. I had a 40-person caseload. I was training to become the person who helps make the determination of how disabled a person is so they can figure out what services they get. I was training to be that kind of a person. And this abscess happened. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. When I came out of the hospital, there was no way I was going to recover enough to be able to sit in 6-hour meetings, which is what this new job entailed. So I went through my FMLA, I went through all of my time off, I took everything I could. They even kept me as an employee and just let me go, and they gave me a certain date, and that date came. And that was humbling. I've worked since I was 12 years old. I babysat, I worked at the pool, I worked at the mall, I joined the military when I was 17, so I have a very high work ethic. It helps me with my anxiety to stay busy, and to have that ripped away because of something that was completely out of my control and stolen from me with that repressed memory, it's very humbling to be, well, kind of where I'm at now. It's had a silver lining at the end of it, but you know, I had to do gig economy work, and I was assaulted during one of those, and that just created a downward spiral. And at the time of all this was happening, I had been fighting for 11 years to get my VA disability, and that was happening all at the same time. So it was just a lot of very important things happening all at the same time, and I couldn't hack it. I couldn't handle it. So I ran away, basically. I bought a camper, a teardrop camper, and a new car because my disability had finally been decided, and I had 11 years of back pay to spend. So I spent it on something that I knew was going to make me abundantly happy, which is being out in nature, hiking, being with my dog, and traveling and seeing the world. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
good.
It's very good because I have been suicidal since I was 16. And I've had multiple attempts. And I'm here, and I had a breakthrough in one of my ketamine infusions where I actually felt happiness, like physically, and laughed out loud maniacally like I never have in my life. And now I'm chasing that. I want that feeling that I had of what I am calling happiness back again. Because as soon as it wore off, it kind of went away. But that's why I've continued my exploration with psychedelics. I have known about the benefits of it for years as far as mental health goes, just because of the things I'm interested in with, psychology. And I was a mental health technician in the Air Force, and I was a peer support specialist at the VA. So alternative therapies was always something I was drawn to because from my experience, I knew that talk therapy and medication didn't work for me, and I can't be the only one. So I'm very treatment resistant, I'm very medication resistant, and ketamine and psychedelics have been the only thing that have ever worked for me to get any footing forward with my mental health. I have been stuck for a long time, and people will tell you that they didn't want to be around me. I was very jaded. I was very angry. I was living a very rough life for 13 years in Chicago, like in the city. And you just got to take on these personas to protect yourself. I was harassed and accosted almost every single day in Chicago, catcalling and being touched without my permission on the street, at the VA, at my job. So it was not a good spot.
So this next question, if you could go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
So I thought about this question because I have a specific thought about this that kind of just grinds my nerves. I am a military sexual trauma survivor, and I never went to combat. I never shot anybody. I never went to actual war, front lines or anything. It wasn't even allowed when I was in. Women weren't even allowed to go on the front lines. So, combat veterans, I get it. I get why you need what you get. I get all the services. I get the Wounded Warrior Project. I get all of the nonprofits. I get all of those services. But I feel like MST survivors fighting that same mental war of PTSD and trauma and things that we saw and experienced that we shouldn't have, I don't feel like we're as supported. And it's not just women. Statistically, men are bigger victims of military sexual trauma than women are. But that's just because there's probably more men in the military. But so when I think about war, I think about the war that MST survivors are continuing to fight 20, 30, 40 years later and still don't have sufficient services or support, in my opinion.
Can you describe what is MST?
Military sexual trauma. So that means that you were assaulted, raped while you were in the military by a military member. So my brothers in arms were the ones that took that away from me and basically ruined my life because this is not the trajectory I thought it was going to go. One of them got 12 years in Leavenworth. He's been out for a few years now, so my hypervigilance is way up because I had to testify against him. And I don't know if he's got some, list he's knocking people off of or whatever. So I'm constantly looking over my shoulder for him. I'm constantly on social media, like Googling that name. I have daily flashbacks, nightly nightmares, and that's like when my meditation and my breathing and my psychedelics come into play to help me work through that, because there's a certain image I see every single day and it doesn't stop. People are trying to say these days now that you can be cured of PTSD. And I do not agree. I think you can recover to a point, but it's always there. And it's a matter of you making the decision to not let it affect your life anymore and not forget it, but walk alongside of it. It's got to be a thing that's over here and not in here or here anymore to be able to keep going as a human.
For that experience, that obviously horrible experience that you had, is that the where you had the like the remembrance, or that you had cut out?
I was actually seeing a therapist at the vet center because I had just had it with the VA at a certain point with their mental health services in Colorado Springs. They actually didn't have any mental health providers, so I was forced to go to the vet center. And it was a new therapist. She didn't have very much experience, and I feel like she probably went too far too fast with what she was doing to help me get over this victim identity thing, because that's what I was trying to work on, was getting rid of that. I had identified it. It had been pointed out to me by dear friends. So I was like, this is something I want to change because I don't want to be that person. And I just think lack of experience contributed to that repressed memory being more traumatic than it needed to be. And nothing ever happened to him because I never reported it.
So the next question is somewhat similar. So go in your mind and think this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time that you can relate to the word peace?
No. I've thought about this. I thought about this question today. And I can't, because I haven't experienced it. The only time I've ever had, and I don't call it peace, I would just call it numbed out, quiet, where I didn't feel pain and I wasn't thinking about things that had happened to me in my past, like continual internal dialogue, is the ketamine injections and a DMT trip that I did, where it all just melted away. I became one with everything that was around me, and that was peaceful to me. And it just kind of took my breath away. I was like, oh, this is how it can feel. And it was so like impactful to me. It's nice to know that, about the happiness thing, about this peaceful thing, is that I actually do have the capacity to feel those things, because I didn't even think that I would ever feel those things ever, just because of how guarded and I am. But I know I can, so it's just another chasing the dragon.
I mean, that feeling of oneness, and I've watched a few YouTube videos about ketamine, and just feeling like that you're connected. So this is true regardless of whether you're on the trip or not. Like,
oh, definitely.
So for me, it's kind of like when I'm talking to you, I feel connected to you. Or when I'm talking to other people, I feel connected, and you've done a lot of work where you're helping, people similar to us, and just in different spheres of society. And for me, that gives me, it lets me know I feel that connection, right? Would you say that you feel that connection, and whenever you do your work, or when you're hiking, or when you're even with your dog?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer. I know it's super like trendy right now, but the law of attraction. All of my affirmations during my meditation in the morning are things that I speak in the present tense. And I have manifested many things with doing that technique. I denounced God when I was 17, when my best friend was killed, because I didn't understand when I was 17, how can an all-knowing, all-loving, all-good God take somebody this important to me away for no reason? So then I was a witch, and then I was an atheist, and then just with me over the past few years getting more and more into the psychedelics industry and reaching out and gaining knowledge and researching my own stuff, the law of attraction speaks to me the most. Or just like the universe, saying the universe instead of God, it all means the same thing, you know. And I saw a YouTube video called The Egg. I can't pronounce the name of the channel because I think it's German. And it's great animation, first of all, and that the whole channel is amazing. But this one particular video that I watched, it explained how everybody on Earth is just the same person, just a different version of yourself. And I have been told that I lack empathy in the past, and which is, you know, a symptom of PTSD and childhood trauma. And that actually struck a chord with me when I can look at someone that's completely opposite of me and be like, I still have to love you because you're me. You're just thinking differently. You know what I mean? So that really flipped a switch for me, you know, putting me in the mindset of just trying to be kind to everybody as much as you can, because otherwise you're just hating on yourself. Yeah. So I don't remember what the question was or where we were going, but that has definitely changed my mindset, and even in just the past year.
That answered the question.
Okay, good.
So the next question, if you can talk about a truly difficult time in your life, how that felt and how you endured.
Pick one. Just because I do feel like that I had a psychotic break at this time, I would probably rate this as the hardest thing, is when I was notified about my best friend being killed when I was 17. That was crushing to me. Looking back now, I think I was probably maybe in love with her, so that made it extra hurtful. And I was notified by, you know, people that aren't close to me, and it happened out of town, so that's where her family was. I had just had a medical procedure the day before. I had my tonsils lanced, so I couldn't even like cry or talk or yell without ripping all of that apart. So it felt like everything really got stuffed. And at the funeral and at the wake and everything, I took on the role of like the gopher. What do you need? I'll go get it. Can I help you? What do you need? Let me do it. You know, I had to stay busy. Otherwise, it was going to happen again, the psychotic break. And it's just, I just see that because it was so much sadness that I couldn't even register it. Like flailing around on the ground, swinging my arms and legs and trying to scream, you know. So yeah, see, you got me crying. Yeah.
How long did the psychotic break last?
Just that day.
And what was it? What did it consist of?
I don't remember a lot. All I remember from that day is, well, the night before I got a phone call saying that she had been in an accident
in a car accident. So I was like, okay, broken leg or something. It was super late. They had gotten me out of, bed to take the call. It was her sister that had called me. And so then I got up the next day and I went and got my procedure done. I was like, they'll call and let me know when something is, when they know something new or whatever. I was tight with her sisters and her mom and stuff. And came home and I was recovering, and my cheerleading coach knocked on the door to come and tell me that Rachel had died or been killed. And I remember my mom was standing there, and then I just remember turning, and what I see in my head now is like my mom's brown carpet, and I was face down in it. I remember flailing around. I remember, mom had never been consoling in any other situation in my life, and all of a sudden she wanted to be. And I was like, no, thank you, So it was a lot of people get away from me, people touching me without me wanting them to. And, yeah.
How would you say 17, I personally think when something heavy like that happens to us at a young age and we don't know how to process it in a healthy way, like it sticks with us for a very long time until like you start going on that journey to like figure out why am I like this, right? Being 17, how'd you see life after that?
It was kind of like two sides of a coin. I knew I was leaving for the Air Force, and that was supposed to be like our last summer to like kick it off, because she was 1 year younger than me and still in high school. So it was disappointing that wasn't going to happen. Of course, disappointing that she wasn't ever going to be there ever again to like help me get through basic training and be my pen pal if I get deployed. Like, we had made all those plans. We'd made all the plans of being two little old ladies in rocking chairs on our porch, And so it was disappointing, and it was also hopeful because I knew I was going to leave and be able to go and do bigger and better things. So, one of her and I's mutual good friends lived right down the street from me, and he was very close to her as well. And I went and smoked 2 cartons of cigarettes in his basement with him. And then once she was buried, we were up at her grave smoking cigarettes all the time. I couldn't really get into too much trouble because I was going to go in the Air Force, so I couldn't, do any drugs or anything like that, or underage drinking or anything, So it was pretty stifling, now that I think about it, to try and grieve at that point. I have done years and years and years of therapy, though, to help me, get over all of that. So I feel good about it. I still think about her every day. I have her, tattooed on me, so.
Have you had a truly joyous moment in your life? Or the closest thing to it?
Okay, thank you. The closest thing to it, because I thought about this question too. My sister, who I'm probably the closest to in my life, finally got pregnant and had a baby in June. And I know how important it has been for her for years and how much she's struggled in finding a partner to do it with, to the point where if she didn't find one by a certain time, she was just going to do it on her own, which she could have easily done. She's a rock star. But I think that's the most authentic, joyous thing that I feel like I've felt for somebody else, yeah. And I get to meet her on April 10th.
What keeps you up at night?
Art keeps me up at night a lot. because now you can do picture in a picture on the iPad. So I have my Procreate, I'm drawing and I'm watching, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in the corner. So that keeps me up at night. I have really, really bad sleep hygiene, but I'm also lucky enough to have a flexible enough life to where it's not really an issue. So I go to sleep when I'm tired and I wake up when I'm not anymore. And my environment really affects me too. And the environment I am in right now isn't the greatest as far as like noise levels and stuff. There's a lot of people running around. But I just look forward to, I'm going to be in my camper in the middle of the woods in less than a month. So I'll deal.
So the next question is, what keeps you going every day?
Her for sure. She's super bossy, so she tells me when it's time to get up and do things for her. But she's part of, how I started that whole routine that I have in the morning. She's part of that because I didn't have one, and then I got her and moved away, so it was just me and her, and she needed routine, She also, has saved my life so many times. When I was living in Oregon for a year, I was very suicidal. I was attempting to drive my car into oncoming traffic multiple times before chickening out, and the only thing that kept me from doing it was Betsy. I couldn't fathom thinking about her being at the apartment alone, not knowing where I am, and her herself passing away, all because I wanted to end things. I know a lot of people have the opinion that suicide is selfish. I get that. However, suicidal ideations are part of a disease. Cancer is a disease, right? Would you tell someone who got cancer that they were selfish? No. Suicidal ideations are something that aren't able to be controlled. It is your chemical makeup in your brain telling you to do these things. And for someone to say that it's selfish, I don't agree with that. And I know it's going to piss a lot of people off when I say that, because they're so hurt by these people that, do it. With my experience with psychedelics, I don't fear death anymore. And the spirit molecule DMT is supposedly what you do experience when you die. And if that's what you experience when you die, I'm for it. So that leads to me, being a little bit more risky with things than I normally would be, because I don't have that fear of death. But yes, in my opinion, suicide isn't a selfish thing. It is something that someone who's just at the end of their rope and frustrated with the fact that they cannot control it, is just something that happens to people. You can't fault them or be mad at them. People who fault that and are mad at them, in my opinion, are the selfish ones. It was time for that person to move on, And I know that sounds callous, but that's just the way that I think in the spirituality that I'm interested in right now, is that, I don't think that everything happens for a reason, that kind of thing. But I do believe that our energy runs out. And sometimes you need to go get a restart,
What would you say? I've been through, suicidal thoughts. I don't think it's selfish. Only someone who hasn't been through it thinks it's selfish. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, I had a cousin who hung himself.
I'm sorry.
Rest in peace. And I remember never having, like when it happened in my head, I was hurt, and I didn't think he was selfish, but I didn't. That wasn't my initial thought, because I hadn't dealt with those issues yet.
Yeah.
So it was just like, man, why would he do it?
Right.
Why?
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't like it, I kind of, you should be able to understand that it's obviously something pretty serious and deep. It just was like, man, like why do you end your whole life?
Yeah.
And then when I went through it myself, it's like I had a deeper connection with him at that point, because it was, I get it.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, even the talk in my head was, hell's got to be better than this, because this I can't do. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather see what's on the other side, or it's such a low spot.
Right. Right. There's got to be something better than
Right.
this. It's
Right.
got to be better.
And there is, and it's here.
Right.
You know, and it's here, and you know, for me, like to go from a place where life wasn't worth living, or to go through that daily depression battle, like there's no way. There's no way.
My attempts were based around escaping.
Escape,
I was trying
yeah.
to escape a tumultuous childhood and household
Yeah.
growing up. I was trying to escape a bad relationship. I was trying to escape just the feeling of hopelessness. Like, I don't want to feel like this. So how do I stop it? Because everything that everybody's given me is not working. So this is the solution to make it all go away and start over.
What would you say is keeping you here on Earth? Internally, what's keeping you here?
Yeah. That is still kind of, I haven't figured that out yet. I know that I'm excited about my future and the things that I'm going to see and do, hopefully, before my body runs out. I'm not going to be able to do this forever with the things that I have going on. So I'm really lucky to be 43 and able to do this now. But I have friends and acquaintances that in my mind I have inflated to be closer and more intimate than they really are, which is part of victim identity, I believe, in that you make associations with people that you have the tiniest smidge of commonality with, and you're best friends all of a sudden, because you're striving so much for somebody to listen to your victim story again, you know? So I have a very few select friends that have stayed with me over the years through all of this, and I've helped them, they've helped me, and I would love to, for the ones that want it, be able to buy some land, let them build whatever they want to build out there. A lot of them are like yurts and stuff like that, I'm assuming, but and just to be able to feel that freedom I feel right now. You know, I am lucky enough or unlucky enough to not have any debt. I had to go through some shit, you know, to not have any debt. But I want to gift that to other people, because it is such an amazing feeling after weathering all of that storm of the past 40 years to finally be like, look, I'm on the other side of it now. Hopefully, come be with me now, because I'm so different, you know? So I want them to come out and live on land and build for free and be a little hippie commune.
So the next question is, imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
My biggest regret would be not choosing to go live with my dad when I had the choice at 12 years old, because I think my life would be completely different. I wouldn't have had to join the military. I would have been able to go to school, get paid for, and have a a higher level of financial living. My father was a little bit more well off than my mom, so that would have been different. I wouldn't have joined the military. I wouldn't have gotten sexually assaulted. I wouldn't have had social security number fraud. There's a lot of stuff that wouldn't have happened if I would have made that one decision. And I didn't do it because I wanted to stay at my mom's house because of my friends that I had. You want to know how many of those friends I talked to today? 0. So it was not worth it. It was not worth that dumb decision. But you got to remember, didn't have anybody else. I didn't have family to want to stay there for. I had friends, and they were my family then. That's who I went to for all the things that were lacking. So of course I chose them instead of going into the abyss of not knowing what was going to happen the rest of my life. But it's a big regret. I wish I would have chosen differently, for sure.
So you're alive and well.
Yes.
Do you feel that you can at least make amends with that regret?
Oh yeah, I have. Years and years of therapy. And the ketamine has a dissociative property that helped me disconnect from the negative. So I feel like just as there's nothing they can do to influence how I live my life and the way I think, I can't them. So they're going to do them, I'll do me. I can tell you, I can guarantee that I'm a whole hell of a lot happier than they are. And that sits well with me.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
It sounds so cliche, but I'm kind of like,
Living your dream.
yeah. I'm kind of only doing what I want to do. And I think that's a big dream for people to be able to do that. I go where I want to go. I do what I want to do. That's kind of the dream for me, freedom.
You're the co-author of your life story. If you can envision, what's your picture perfect ending? If you just had that was good.
I guess just a scene of contentment, which would be, doing the things I love, like having a cute little, mountain cabin house, tiny home or whatever, and making art and sipping coffee in the morning. And I'm going to have a lot more dogs, So I think just however anybody would envision contentment is what my perfect picture would be.
Awesome. That's it.
Nice.
That was good.
Thanks.